Relax.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Hart, and I'm chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom is Stuart McPherson, and in the room is Gail Anderson. The recording secretary is Jason Robertson, and the assessor is Ryan Valderrama. Do we have any Zoom participants today?
The assessor.
Okay. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note that you're placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application and will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Bay Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application be brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. We receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 3 through 8 on our docket today. Mr. Robertson, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may see.
Good morning, Carrie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. You?
Not too bad. The first property that we'll be hearing is 275 Bannatyne Avenue, and the issue is classification and liability. So you can, with classification and liability, I guess the appellant has to go first. So, Mr. Reimer, you can go first.
Yeah, thank you. So there's going to be a common theme. There's all but one of the properties on the docket this morning relate to properties owned and or were the sole tenant for Red River College. All of these properties are the subject of a prior Court of King's Bench application as to liability taxation with corresponding appeals to the municipal board concerning classification only. So that hearing, Mr. Chairman, has not yet been set. Affidavits have been sworn, so it's in progress. But what I'm asking this morning for the entire docket, other than Innovation Drive, which is not part of Red River's portfolio, but for the remainder of the docket this morning, I'm asking for confirmation of the liability to taxation and classification, with the intent that these were filed as protective appeals. They will be appealed up to the municipal board and simply, and to the court, I should say as well, simply to be pending until such time as the court's decision comes down on this issue. So we are asking for that this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, we can't hear you at the moment. You seem to have lost connection. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. We cannot. If it is in the interest, do you mind? We'll take a 2-minute recess or so to work out this technical difficulty. One.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Ramick. Could you read in the roll number and that for the record?
Sure. So the address of I believe the first address is 275 Bannatyne, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So 275 Bannatyne, and the roll number is 13096 159 200.
Okay. So, Mr. Valderrama, do you have any questions of Mr. Reimer?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Stu, any questions?
No, I do not. We're just dealing with one property at a time, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we'll deal with them one at a time because I got to read each one into the record and that sort of thing.
Okay. I have no questions. Thank you.
Gail, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Valderrama, then you can give your presentation on that.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm just gonna pull it up.
Okay, keeping in mind that confirmation has been requested.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just read through the first page, probably, Mr. Chair, if that's
okay.
Sufficient. Okay.
All right.
So we're dealing with the first property in the docket. It has a file number of 22-1311. The roll number is 13096159200, and it is located at 275 Bannatyne Avenue. The roll year we are dealing with is 2023, using the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $209,000. The classification is an institutional property with the liability of grant. It is land. It has a land area of 12,224 square feet, and that's mainly the presentation for this property, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Reimer, do you have any questions of the assessor?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Gail, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Stu, any questions?
Yeah, actually, I would like the assessor to provide us with the classification and liability as in his second or third page, just why it's classed as it is.
All right, that's fine.
If you would, please. Just for this first property anyway, Mr. Chair.
Yep, fine. Go ahead, Mr. Valderrama.
Okay, as attached in my evidence or brief on page 2, there's the classification and liability. We find that the Red River College is a creature of statute as determined in the Red River College Act and included in the Advanced Education Administration Act. And then the taxation, it is the assessments performed for the purpose of municipal taxation of city of city property are governed by the Municipal Assessment Act, and the municipal taxation, or rather the act of levying taxes by the city, imposes two kinds of taxes on real property, which are embraced by the scope of the Municipal Assessment Act, or MAA. These are both reflected on the annual statement and demand of taxes that is mailed out in May of each year as a part of the city's annual municipal taxation scheme. So the provincial governments, this Public Schools Act directs municipalities such as the city to bill, collect, and remit to the province school taxes, which are then used by school divisions to pay for education. There are two kinds of school taxes collected through the Act of Municipal Taxation: Education Support Levy and the School Division Levy. There are two kinds of municipal taxes that can be applied by the city in relation to the properties. The first one is the council may by law impose frontage levies, also known as street renewal levies. These help fund the maintenance and repair of existing infrastructure. And the next one, where a local improvement has been requested in an area, local improvement levy can also be imposed. These funds go towards such initiatives as building sidewalks or boulevards and installing ornamental street lights, for example. So, and then on the next page, I do have an example of calculation of municipal taxation. And then on the next page is the discussion on the grants in lieu of taxes under the Municipal Act. And then on the next page, of course, the powers of taxation. And then on page 7, it explains, or it has the grants payable in lieu of taxes, the liability of grant and the amount of grant. It's being explained, and it just goes on with regard to the case law authorities on page 10. I believe that's all the presentation on the classification and liability on my evidence, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any questions arising from that, Gail? Or Mr. Reimer, first of all?
No, thank you.
Gail?
No.
Stuart?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so that concludes this property then. We will go on to 319 Elgin. So, Mr. Reimer, you can proceed with 319 Elgin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the property here, another Red River property.
No, sorry. Again, the issue was class and liability.
It is indeed, yes. So this property is assessed at the address 319 Elgin Avenue. It's roll number 13-099-071-910. And again, for the reasons mentioned earlier, in the context of the pending Court of King's Bench appeal that involves this property, we're asking for classification and liability to be confirmed at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Valderrama, any questions on that? Oh, you seem to be muted there.
No questions, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any questions from the panel on that?
No questions.
None for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So Mr. Valderrama on 319 Elgin then, class and liability. And bearing in mind, you don't have to repeat what you said in the first presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going to go through the property description, the assessment information, and the Board of Revision information. So the next property has a file number of 22-1312. It has a roll number of 13099071910. It is located at 319 Elgin Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 and using the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $1,506,000, classification with a classification of institutional property and a liability of grant. The property has 3 stories, 1 section, effective years built of 1958 to 1975. Has a construction class of masonry bearing walls with an average wall height of 13 feet. It is zoned as C or character, with a land area of 28,138 square feet, land area of 6,326 square feet, and a gross floor area of 25,304 square feet. And that's the presentation on the property description, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Reimer, any questions?
Questions?
Okay, any questions from the panel?
No question.
I do have one, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to know the property, whether it's owned or occupied, does that come into play on classification and liability, Mr. Assessor?
That's a good question. So your question basically means, or if I understood it right, if the occupants of the property, in this case, Red River College, come into play when classification and liability are determined?
Yeah, actually, I just noticed on the first one, if I'm not mistaken, it was a lease, but occupied by the Red River College. And this one is the owner is the Board of Governors of Red River College. So I'm just a general question. Would it be the same for classification and liability, whether it was owned or occupied?
I believe it is based on there was a case law on this one. It just slipped out of my head. I forgot it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, can I help with this this question?
Sure, go ahead.
So the exemption. So the structure of the exemption is starting point is Section 22 of the Municipal Assessment Act. Then you go to the Municipal Act to talk where it speaks of what the limit of the grants payable. This is of course an organization that's affiliated with post-secondary education and is responsible directly to the province. So Mr. McPherson's question was if it has to be owned. The previous property is a lease that's affiliated with 504 Main Street. And so what the legislation says, it's owned or held in trust for, and that structure held in trust for is essentially where this, not this property, but the previous one would fall. The Red River College has obviously full rights as the sole lessee of that property. It's used in conjunction with the operations of 504, and the component of the legislation that says that we're relying on, which is Section 23, says owned or held in trust for and used by a college or seminary of learning. And we believe that particular property falls within the scope of the exemption we're seeking in court. For the remainder of the properties, and I believe Mr. McPherson had indicated the owner is the Board of Governors of Red River College, and that of course also is, as I say, it's the college being directly accountable to the province, and so for the remainder of them, they would fall within Section 23 as the owner.
Thank you, Mr. Reimer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes Elgin Avenue. And then we'll go to 504 Main Street. So again, Mr. Reimer, the issue is class and liability.
It is.
So go ahead.
Thank you. So this is 504 Main Street, again, a Red River College property, and the roll number is 13-096-193-600. And we're requesting, pending the outcome of the Court of King's Bench application, we're requesting confirmation of liability and classification at this time. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Reimer?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, any questions from the panel?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay.
I have no questions on Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Valderrama, then you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next property has a file number of 22-1314. It has a roll number of 13096193600. It is located at 504 Main Street. The property is zoned as C or character, with a land area of 28,138 square feet, land area of 6,326 square feet, and a gross floor area of 25,304 square feet. And it is located at 505 Main Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. There is a split assessment. There are two assessments on this property. The first one has a value of $9,183,000. Is classified as institutional property with a liability of grant. And the next assessment has an assessed value of $7,378,000, classified as a residential 2 with a liability of grant. The property has 1 to 10 stories, has 3 sections with effective years built of 1990 to 2010. That's a construction class of reinforced concrete frame, an average wall height of 17 feet. Its land area is 19,499 square feet, a planned area of 19,849 square feet, and a gross floor area of 108,130 square feet. And that's the presentation that I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Reimer, any questions?
No questions?
Any questions from the panel?
I have no questions.
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that then. Now we come to the heart of the issue. The hearing today is 155 Innovations Drive, and the issue on this one is assessed value. Okay, so in this instance, Mr. Valderrama, you have the burden of proof, so we will have your presentation first then.
The applicant needs to be sworn in.
Oh, okay, different applicant. All right, go ahead, do the swearing in then.
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can see.
Okay, so now, Mr. Valderrama, I didn't realize there was a switch in applicant here. Mr. Valderrama on 155 Innovation Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property we're dealing with has a file number of 22-1714. It has a roll number of 0309161980. It is located at 155 Innovation Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for this property is $23,619,000. It is classified as an other property with a taxable liability. And the property has 2 stories, 4 sections, effective years built of 1983 to 2006. Has a land area of 288,739 square feet, a planned area of 72,917 square feet, a gross floor area of 171,783 square feet. On the next page is the cost valuation summary. The replacement cost new for the building is $34,026,360. The accrued depreciation for the building is $13,014,360. The depreciated cost for the building is $21,012,000. The depreciated cost for detached structures is $219,000, with a total depreciated cost for both building and detached structures of about $21,231,000. It has a land valuation of $2,388,000, with a total value of $23,619,000. On page 3 is the aerial photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the zoning. On page 5 are the cost summary by building section for the subject property. On page 6 is where the land sale comparables are. The first comparable is located at 100 South Town Road. It was sold. Its sale price per square foot, is $14.91, and it was sold on September 20, 2018. The second comparable is located at 375 Center Street. The sale price per square foot is $15.49, and it was sold on February 19, 2019. And the third comparable is located at 225 Center Street. The sale price per square foot is $10.34, and it was sold on July 18, 2014. On the next page, we have the detached structure, different detached structures that were assessed in the property. And then the next section has the land valuation, which indicates a net area of 288,739 square feet and a net rate of $8.27 per square foot. The next page, page 8, is the 2023 cost report, and it goes down until page 12. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions? Marcello?
Yeah, I do have some questions. The first question pertains to your page 3, and you can look at the picture at the very bottom. And we have a similar picture in ours. Mr. Valderrama, can you actually point out where the detached structures are?
May not be a little clear on my pictures. However, the details of the detached structures, I do have the paving asphalt. I do have the parking surface lot that's wired. I do have the tank and the another paving asphalt. So,
Okay, so what you're talking about is improvements, not detached structures. Can you clarify?
it's more of how we put them or classify them. And if we look at the detached structure details, they're more of what's on the land. So
Okay, so what you're saying,
you can call it what.
Just to clarify again, what you're saying is that where you've calculated for detached structures, that is actually a value assigned for site improvements. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, on your page 5, you have the building numbers assigned as building 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you can see by the pictures that there are 3 buildings here. So these are effectively sections, or are they actually buildings? Because what I see here is 3 buildings.
Right. If we look at the heading of it, it's cost summary by building section.
Okay.
And I do believe this one was built in different stages.
Okay. And have you ever been inside this building?
I don't recall being inspected the interior of the building. Not yet. I haven't been.
Okay. So then you can't speak to any of the, I guess, the condition of the building and also the layout of the building, correct?
Without seeing the interiors of it, no, I can't.
Okay. Have you made any contact with the property owner regarding this property?
I haven't.
Okay. Now, does your cost evaluation include any other adjustments other than typical depreciation? So that would be age life. Is there anything above and beyond that?
Well, we use the Marshall and Swift cost estimates, which addresses and you also we use the replacement cost new method or replacement cost method which addresses almost a lot of forms of depreciation, so that may include other forms of depreciation, and we take into account the age life.
So what you're saying is that you have only accounted for the age life depreciation of the property.
Based on the cost report that I have, yes.
Now, if there was additional vacancy or any risk to this type of property, how would you address that?
And also I was just looking at the cost report, it just slipped out of my head. On page 8 there's also an additional external depreciation of about 15% aside from the normal depreciation.
And this is on page
8 on the cost reports, beginning of page 8, sorry. So from page 8 to page 11 are the buildings.
right.
And if we go through it, we go through each section, it says replacement cost new, less GST, RCN, GST adjusted, and then less normal depreciation, which is, I believe, the age. And then we have another line there that says less additional external depreciation, which is 15%.
Okay, so under physical and functional, you have 12%.
Which page is that? Sorry.
So that would be, I guess, consistent through most of the buildings. You have normal depreciation, 53% on the first page.
Right.
8, that is the first structure. Okay.
Right.
And then you've added an additional 15% external depreciation. So that
Yes,
is
that's correct.
a total of 68 around there. And that is because I'm assuming the age of the building, correct?
The age goes to the normal depreciation. The external depreciation, I believe, is an added one. It's not because of the age.
And do you know what that 15% was?
I believe this was a discussion or it was the from the municipal board that was discussed. I was unable to attach that order or that discussion in here, but I believe it is more consider it's being considered, or it is considering the fact that it's not fully fully occupied, meaning there's some areas that are not being used.
What would those areas be?
Without inspecting, I am uncertain of those areas.
Okay, so that is consistent throughout the property valuation. Now, in terms of the property itself, was there any consideration to any other approach?
No, I believe this was consistent in the manner that of valuation in terms of what has transpired in the past.
So then there's been no consideration for any other approach to value.
Well, there were discussions in the past, however, this was the methodology that were considered.
And are you aware of the zoning for this property?
Zoning. Yeah, on page 4, it indicates MMU, or manufacturing mixed use.
Okay. And given that most of the sales that you have are actually for BCom lands, correct? You have one industrial. MMU is mixed use. Is that industrial?
Well, it says on the zoning for all of the land sale comparables, it's MMU. So I'm comparing the property, the land's property, or the land of the property. I'm considering the zoning as well. So all the comparables are all MMUs in this case.
And in terms of the valuation, the cost valuation, you did this yourself?
The cost valuation, no, I did not. This has been in place for a lot of years already, a lot of reassessments.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Stuart, any questions of the assessor?
I guess just on your costing, Mr. Assessor, you've got the base cost, and then you've got some additions for. If I look at the first one on page 8, you have exterior wall, HVAC, sprinkler, elevators, and none of those are included in the base cost. Is that my understanding? Or
The base
over and above the base cost, does the base cost of the property itself not include any HVAC, sprinklers, elevators? Is that the situation?
To answer that, Mr. Chair, the base cost always has a minimum other elements in it. When we do an override, what the system does is it removes whatever's in the base cost and replaces it with the cost of the new element. For example, in this case, we have a complete HVAC. I'm just not sure what the base cost HVAC is in there in the base cost. However, the computer or the system that we're using removes whatever is in the base cost and then replaces it with the HVAC or complete HVAC in this case.
Okay, so the base
So there will
cost,
be no double counting or anything like that.
the base cost you've got is $202.91, and the HVAC is additional $54.55. So it's my understanding that had there not been a cost added for the HVAC of $54.55, the base cost would have been higher.
The base cost may have included a lower element of HVAC. It may not be the 617 complete HVAC. It could be some other lower element.
Right, but you said you remove that
basic.
cost. You remove that cost before you add the additional cost. I believe that's what you.
The system automatically does that.
Okay, so the base cost would have been higher if it was just normal HVAC. Is that correct?
May or may be lower. Instead of if we add $202 and $54, it's about $256. It might not be $256 per square foot. It might be lower because the HVAC may or may not be higher or lower than what the base cost of masonry bearing walls include.
Okay, thank you. And just the foundation adjustment. Can you tell us why there's a foundation adjustment?
Without really inspecting this, Mr. Chair, I believe there was an assessment for basement when it was inspected by a different assessor back then.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, Gail, any questions?
Yes, I have questions relating to the depreciation. So my understanding of what you indicated, Mr. Assessor, was the normal depreciation line. It's referring it's calculated in the system based on age of the building. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then the additional external depreciation of 15%, is that always 15% in this type of building? Or is it based on vacancy levels that you're aware of within the building?
Again, without really inspecting the interior, if there is actually vacant spaces that are not being utilized by the occupant of this property, the 15% I believe was agreed upon or was set in the past assessment due to the inspection of the previous assessor and the applicant. It's more of an estimate that there are some areas that are not being fully utilized by the occupant of the property, ma'am.
Okay, so it's ongoing unutilized property rather than a vacancy turnover.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, then my questions are, this is the plasma collection and production facility that they have out there, is that correct?
Well, on page 8, that's the name of the building when it was entered in the system.
Okay. Now, once again, why was the cost approach used?
I believe this was decided a few reassessments ago. I wasn't involved in the decision, or I believe it was a decision that was made even at the municipal board, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and was that because it's more of a laboratory than anything else?
I am not aware of what's inside the property. However, as far as I know, it's a production or being used as more like a laboratory rather than office. But I think that's the majority of it. Even a research facility, I think.
All right, thank you for that. Then I have no more questions. So Marcello, you can give your presentation.
Okay, so we are looking at 155 Innovation Drive. And if you're not familiar with this property, it's located east of Pembina Highway along, I believe, Bison Drive. It is, I guess, across from the new stadium in that particular area. And on page 2, you can see the assessment summary. Again, we have the address, the roll number, the gross floor area, the leasable area. This is a 2-story facility, and the age varies from 1983 to 2006. And the site area is roughly 6.63 acres. And the intended use of the report, as you can see there, I've gone over this many times in different hearings. I believe you've all heard this, so I will slightly skip over this section. We did inspect this property, and I was inside the property, so I can actually speak to it. And if you turn to page 6, you can see the overhead pictures of the property. So there are effectively 3 buildings here. The one that is on the what you would call the north east side. So if you see the service road there, there is a white structure close to that. The building closest to that is actually the oldest part of the property that was built in 1983. And the next oldest is the one below it. And the newest part is the section that is actually to the west. So basically, again, there are 3 buildings here, building A and building B and C. So this section, building A, was constructed in 2 separate stages in 2002, 2003, the first phase. And it is roughly 62,639 square feet and includes a basement area. Now, section B was constructed in 1983, and as I noted in the picture, that is the northeast side. And that section is roughly 16,028 square feet, also has a basement, and it has a gross floor area of 47,426 square feet. Now, the next section is building C, which is the building below that. That is also a 2-story building constructed in 2006, and that one is 40,719 square feet, including a basement area of 13,361 square feet. The highest and best use is believed to be its continued use. In terms of the approaches to value, we explored 2 approaches, income and cost. So we have a summary on page 12 of the cost approach, and I do have the actual the actual cost report at the end of the brief, and we can go over that after I lightly glance over this section. So the replacement cost new that we have is 39,643,126. The depreciation is 20,962,800. That gives us a replacement cost new less depreciation of 18,680,326. And we have land improvements of 933,607 and land value of 2,400,000 for a total value of 22,013,933. Now, we did not use the direct comparison approach, but we did attempt to use the income approach to value to validate our cost approach, but also to note that we can also readily use this approach for this type of property, and we will see it in the rebuttal that I had actually sent in. So this building, to begin with, just to give you an idea of what it is very much, I would say, almost like a flex building. So it has a lot of capability in terms of production. So it has a production section, and it has a laboratory section. It also has a warehouse section, and it also has office areas. So it's very typical of many industrial buildings, except that it has some very specialized uses in certain sections of the building, or the complex, because there are 3 buildings. And so we were looking at comparables that might fit this. We did find one in particular, and that is at Debates Avenue, has an effective age of 2008, and it is leasing roughly 73,000 square feet. We have a lease here of 2017 to October 22, slightly older, but the lease term was $8.83, and that is with M2 zoning, 24 wall height, and the land to building ratio is not as preferable as this one, but then we've made adjustments to the rent overall. So the rent that we've applied to this property is $9.75 for the total of 171,783 square feet. In terms of the vacancy, this is a section of the vacancy that report that comes out of our industrial cap report. I will just lightly glance over this and skip over it. And if you can turn to page 22, the vacancy that we are applying to this property is 4%, and that would be market vacancy it would not be pertinent. It would not be based on any actual vacancy in the property itself. And as I've already noted, we've applied a market rent to it. We're applying a market vacancy. The shortfall that we are applying is $3.85 per square foot. That is the common industrial vacancy as outlined in the City of Winnipeg's Assessment and Taxation Department Valuation of Income Producing Properties report. In terms of non-recovered expenses, we've applied a 7% non-recovered expense allowance. We've submitted the non-recoverable expense study. We've gone over that a few times. If you'd like, I can go over it. What I will say about this, though, is that throughout this report and any income valuation that we do, we include that 7% allowance in there in the calculations. So if there is no reference to that 5%, that additional 5% that we always speak of, it has to be accounted somewhere else, and we ask for it to be accounted in the cap rate. So typically what we would ask for is about a 2.25 upward adjustment on the cap rate if there is no consideration given to the non-recovered expenses. However, we are leaving the non-recovered expenses in here. As I said previously, this is a market approach. We have applied market rent, we have applied market vacancy, market shortfall, and we are applying a non-recovered expense that is based on market as well. Now, in terms of the capitalization rate, the capitalization rate that the city suggests, obviously they don't use it, so we can't consider anything that they've done in terms of the income approach. We are utilizing the capitalization rate of 7.25. And you can see on page 23, we have our cap rate ranges for A, B, and non-investment grade. So the class B would be 6.5 to 7.0. That is basically where I would fit this building. We do assign additional risk to this property, and the risk is the very nature of the property itself. It is a laboratory slash manufacturing facility with a lot of specialization. So it can fall prey to changes in the marketplace very quickly. And one of the reasons that we included information about 26 Henlow in this property brief is basically just as an example of what can happen to this type of facility. Now, the Henlow property was built in the 90s, but it was also state of the art. And I've been in that property now twice, and it fell prey essentially to the market itself. So the product that it was producing was no longer viewed as being feasible, profitable. So it changed. And there was no real need for that facility. And it was sold off at a very low price. And I'm not suggesting that this property is going to sell at that price or would sell in the near future. But we do recognize that there is always some risk in this type of industry. So that is where we assign that additional cap rate premium. Also, there are some areas that are especially are special to this type of industry. And those are the HVAC systems and the water purification systems. So you won't find those in any other type of building. They are kind of specific to this type of industry. So that is why, again, additionally, why we added an additional premium to the property at 7.25. Now on page 25, you can see my income workup, and you can see that we have an income of $1,674,279. We applied 4% vacancy to that, giving us an effective market income of $1,607,000. To this, we've applied the standard shortfall and our management, what we call non-recoverable expenses. And that gives us a net operating income of $1,468,342. We have a capitalization rate of 7.25, and we have an income value of $20,252,989. Now, going into the appendix, you will see my income summary. So starting on page 1, we go through the different sections of the property, and I make similar adjustments like the assessor is making. What I will note is that I prepared this cost valuation myself, so there was nobody else involved in the valuation of this property. I've adjusted for exterior curtain walls, HVAC, sprinklers, elevators. What I will say about the HVAC system, because I noted some conversation about that, is that this type of structure comes with a very basic HVAC, and we wouldn't even call it an HVAC system. Heat, air conditioning system, and it is at a much lower level. So when we adjust for HVAC, and this is complete HVAC, we're adjusting for a much higher grade of HVAC. So to get back to the original point, no, we wouldn't be higher initially. We would actually be lower. We are adding these additives, and that's what they are, is additives. So we're actually breaking away from the standard layout for the cost of this property, and adding additional value to it in terms of exterior walls, in terms of HVAC, in terms of sprinklers, in terms of elevators. And that goes throughout the different sections of the building, sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on page 3 of the summary report, you'll see at the very top the page numbers, page 3 of the cost summary. This is where we get into the actual summary. So as I mentioned, the replacement cost new is $39,643,126. We've added depreciation of $18,680,326, and to that we've also added land value of $2,400,000, and some additional additives like the loading dock, foundation adjustments, for a total of $22,013,933. Now, to get back to the foundation adjustments, I believe you had forget who had asked that. So the foundation adjustments are essentially pilings. So we're adding additives for that. And that is basically, it doesn't come standard with the property. It's something that you actually have to go into the system and add it in for that. So those are the additional adjustments that we're making. We're also making adjustments for site improvements. So again, the total cost is $2,013,933. The remainder of the section pertains to the sale of 26 Henwell, and I briefly spoke about that. So that property, and I'm sorry for not numbering the appendix, but if you turn to the back of the document, and it will be the third last page, and it will say Sabre sale, 26 Henwell. Does everyone have that?
Sorry, I'm not there yet. What is it? Right at the end of your appendix?
It's near the end. It'll be either the third or fourth last. It'll say Sabre at the top.
I do have it. Thank you.
Okay. So this addresses the sale of that particular property, and again, that was a state-of-the-art facility, and it is still state-of-the-art. If you walk into it, there are some systems in there that you will not see in just about any building, like the HVAC systems that are on the second floor, the lab facilities, that particular building comes with blast walls, which you don't see in most buildings. We did value that property on income, and I don't think there's anything really stopping us from valuing that property on income. So again, relating to that, we don't really see any barriers to valuing this property on income, given that they are similar in many ways. So that is the presentation, and I am open for questions.
Okay, questions, Mr. Valderrama.
Yes, Mr. Chair. On page 14, I believe this is the least comparable information.
Yeah.
Are all the comparables or comparable leases in these in these addresses, are they all typical warehouses?
Except for the first one. The index 1 and 2 are the same property on Debates, and you can see that they are a total of about 73,000 and change in terms of size. That particular property, I'll note, is a drug producing facility. So they produce vitamins, drugs, other things. So they have laboratory sections, they have production facilities, they have warehouse facilities, they have office facilities. It is very much like this property. And located in a different area, but they do very similar things, and they have very similar facilities. So that one, again, is $8.83 per square foot. It is slightly older, but again, we adjusted that rent upwards.
And you mentioned that the one on the Debate Street is on the other side of the city, if I'm not mistaken. This is in the east.
I don't think that really matters at this point. These are pretty specialized facilities, so whether they're located at Innovation Drive or in St. Boniface Industrial Park, I don't think really makes too much of a difference.
Well, the market rent seems to be lower, and that's in that area compared to if we look at Buffalo Place, which is I think in the west side, if I'm not mistaken, Buffalo. Yeah, Clarence also is also on the west side. So I mean, it's kind of giving us and also if I may ask a question, would you notice also that the lease start date, would it be safe to say or safe to do a trending analysis on this one by looking at the lease start date? Is it safe for me to conclude or to assume that as the lease start goes closer to April 1st, 2021, the net rent per square foot goes up? Generally, not all, generally on these lease comparables.
Well, just to answer your question, I don't know if I would go through a trending analysis. I'm not sure what that is. What I would do is look at comparable rents to see how they are increasing. And again, that one was negotiated in 2017, which is really not that far back from the reference date. It's 4 years back. So we've adjusted that rent upward by, to $9.75. But I think what you may be missing here is also that space is 73,000 square feet. We're looking at a space of closer to 200,000 square feet. So there would be some adjustment downward overall on the rent based on just the overall size of the property that we're looking at. That comparable is much, much smaller. So I would say that you would have to adjust that as well. And that is something that I took into consideration when I adjusted my rent to $9.75.
And if we look at the zoning column, would you say that this one is different, an M2 compared to an MMU?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Would you say the zoning for the comparable leases, they're all M2s? Would you say that that's different than MMU?
Well, I believe MMU is a mixed-use industrial zoning, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so
So would there be any?
I believe you find MMU zoning in St. Boniface Industrial Park as well. I think that there is there has to be some recognition that this is not a heavy industrial property. This is a light industrial property. And that would go hand in hand with the M2 zoning. And what I would say by heavy industrial, so your concrete plants and stuff like that would be, you know, your heavy industrial properties, your rail yards. That's more so heavy industrial side than this. This has light manufacturing facilities. It has laboratory facilities. It has office. It has warehousing. It has lunchrooms. It has all of those things that your typical warehouse would have. So I don't see a need for any other changes to it.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Stuart, questions?
Yeah, I guess just staying with page 14, your income approach. You keep saying that there's office in this property, and all I see is basement office of 145 square feet. So that's basically just one office. Is that all that's there, really?
No, in fact, I think that's probably where the rebuttal would have helped.
Oh, okay. So then I'll leave that for now then.
Yeah.
And
so actually, Mr. McPherson, what I can do is actually answer some of this through the pictures that we have here. So if you turn to page 7, okay, and we have, this is probably the best picture here. So you have, I guess, the building to the left. Can you place it?
Yep.
Okay. So about half of that facility on the second floor is all office.
okay. So
Okay.
does that affect the rate that you've applied?
I think overall, yeah, it's a blended approach. So we're accounting for about 15 to 20% office space overall, and the rest of it would go towards warehousing, manufacturing, and laboratory areas. So it is very much a blended rate, and the reason for it is because I was able to take the comparable on page 14 as basically an example of how this property would be valued. So that property in itself has all of those sections in there. It has the office, it has the manufacturing, it has the laboratory, has the warehousing, has the lunchrooms, has all of those things that you would see in this type of facility, very similar to ours. And that's basically how I was able to rationalize this rent.
Yeah, thank you. And you're mentioning non-recoverables. I believe what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that you're continuing to ask for the 7%. And if 5% additional or 5% part of your 7% request is not applied, you suggested that the cap rate should be increased and have a premium to account for that. Is that what you
basically built into every calculation that we do for every property, whether it's office, whether it's industrial, retail, we have that 5% in there in every calculation. So if it's being taken out, it has to be adjusted into the cap rate. So yes, that is what I'm saying.
And you were saying that's a quarter point is what? Is that what you said? Quarter point?
I said a quarter point, I think would be good.
Okay. And just in your appendix for Henlow, I believe you said that you valued that on income.
I did, actually. I'm the culprit involved in the valuation of that property as well. And that one is being done on income, and so has the assessor.
Right. And how does that compare to the sale price as far as income valuation?
So the income valuation for that property is slightly different because it has to be, we have to account for additional vacancy on that property. So that facility is going through, I guess, regeneration. And they are trying to find tenants who can utilize the research facilities and the production areas. So they've started some rent up of that recently. But in the past, what we're dealing with at the Board of Revision and Municipal Board deals with the past. And in the past, that property, when the production side fell off, as I mentioned earlier, there was simply a change in the marketplace. And that facility it's not really obsolete. It's just that use was not there anymore in the market. So basically they sold it off. It sold at a very low value for what was there. They auctioned off much of the equipment. And you can see in the appendix, that's just a list of the equipment that was sold off. However, when it comes down to it, we are able to value that property based on income. There's nothing stopping us. We made some adjustments to the overall footprint of the properties because we did take out some areas of that particular property that had HVAC systems that you would not see in your typical property, not even this one. And we basically removed the square footage that is occupied by those HVAC systems. But both sides agreed to the income approach. We had no problem doing that. And, I think at this point we've already made agreements on past assessments. We still have to deal with the 2023 on that property.
Right. And I believe you also mentioned that the purpose of doing the income approach as a secondary approach was to support the value that was derived from the cost approach. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, you can do it vice versa as well. I mean, you can do the cost approach to validate your income approach, and both of them, I think, are saying very similar things. So that was the intention of using the income approach.
Okay, so there was a reconciliation between the two approaches.
Absolutely.
I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Gail?
I have a question in regards to the summary report, page 3, relating to the foundation investment.
Yes.
So on that report, just a step back, you had said there's 3 buildings, right, associated with this property. But in this report, there's 4 foundation adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just clarify why there's 4?
There is 3 buildings with 4 sections.
Okay.
And the adjustments that we're making in terms of foundation are to account for pilings that go underneath all of those buildings. So this type of structure and this type of land that we have here in Manitoba and in our area is prone to shifting. So a facility like this has to have pilings in it. And the normal specifications that we have in Marshall Swift don't account for that. So you have to actually override that by adding an additive, essentially, which is the foundation adjustment. You'll see other additives in there that are, for example, land, but that wouldn't obviously make sense. We have to add land value. And above that, you can see that we've also added for site improvements. So the site improvements would include the paving, the plugs, the lighting in the outside areas. That would be the parking areas. So,
okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I have a follow-up to that, please?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Applicant, when you stated that the soil conditions required that piling is necessary for properties in this area of this type, is there a local adjustment factor that is also in part of the cost valuation in Marshall Swift?
Marshall Swift does have a local adjustment factor, and that is based on the postal code that you input into the property as you start up the valuation. However, as we found, and we did a comparative analysis based on postal codes, and then accounting for the foundation adjustment. So what I found is that no, the foundation adjustment was something that you physically had to add in there. So the postal code, the market factor adjustment wasn't actually adding for that.
Okay, and this may not be a fair question, but do you know what the market factor allows for?
In terms of like the whole property?
Right.
I don't know that.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be built into the tables that are used in terms of valuing this property. They're kind of behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, just a quick one.
Okay.
If I may. On the sale on Henlo, I think I've been hearing that it's been being compared to, or not really being compared, but it's been highlighted as a sale that's a little bit comparable to the subject property. Just like to know, based on the sale, how much is the per square foot rate, or on the sale per square foot, sale price per square foot on that one?
You want me to calculate it out?
Yes, please.
Okay, just give me a minute.
I'm gonna pull up my calculator too. Okay. So the sale price is how much? Okay, I got the calculator. Where's that one? Oh, it got sold.
And this is very rough because again,
Yep.
I don't have the exact dimensions right here, but it does say on the next page over that there is 6,000 square feet of medical. So if we take 2,650,000 divided by 60,000, that is roughly $44 per square foot.
26 Henlo. The total price, how much was the sale price again on this one? 2,650,000.
Yeah.
And then it was assessed at 7.78 million during the time of sale. Is that right?
Yeah, that was. Okay. Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. That's all the follow-up I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, now I can finally get to my questions. This is indeed the plasma production facility, collection and production facility here. Is that correct?
That's correct. They are doing other things though, other than plasma.
Okay, what would those things be?
So research into, I guess, vaccines. So not just, one use. There is more variety to that. Unfortunately, the production side is something that, in terms of the pictures that we have in the rebuttal, they didn't really allow us to take pictures in there.
Okay. Now, plasma, I guess, the plasma collection has been in the news a fair bit lately, and there is certainly a high demand for plasma, and that the Canadian Blood Services simply can't collect enough. Is that? Do you recall that being in the news?
Okay, so again, what I'll stress here is that that is not all they do here in this facility. So there is a large section of research in terms of the research facilities, and the production areas are not as, I mean, they are not the larger side of this property. The larger side of this property is research, and research is going on in various applications. Not, I mean, plasma itself is not, I would say, the main goal of this facility anymore, if it was ever.
Okay, and this whole area, right, actually on the university grounds, what most people consider university grounds, and it's oriented towards high-tech industries, is it not?
I would say that the partnership with the University of Manitoba is what drives the location here. They have access to a lot of resources in terms of the type of students that they can go looking for and recruit into these facilities, and not just this one.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Now you said you had a rebuttal you wish to present.
So, yes, because I figured that there would be some conversation about what this property was like. So the rebuttal, if you open it up,
well, yeah, looking at it, doesn't strike me as being a rebuttal. It's not rebutting anything the city assessor said, but for the sake of the understanding of the board, it seems fine at this point.
Yeah. So the first picture you see there is basically the layout of the office areas. So the office areas are basically your standard office cubicle design. They are quite extensive in this section. The second picture is the warehousing area, which is effectively like no other. I mean, it's like every other warehousing area that you would see in most flex warehouses. You can see some lunchroom areas. I mean, it has typically what you would find in a lot of industrial buildings. The next picture is the laboratory area, and they only let you take a picture of, unfortunately, the hall space.
I think the next picture looks like a lunchroom to me.
The last picture is the executive boardroom. That is a nice facility. I will admit that. And I believe at some point in the mid 2000s, they did a reno on that. And it does, it does look quite nice. But for the most part, the rest of the building is just your standard industrial building that's been retrofitted to do some other things that, you wouldn't find in your typical industrial building.
Okay. Mr. Valderrama, any questions arising from the rebuttal?
Yeah, those are those pictures based on your inspection of the property?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So during inspection, did you notice any vacancy in the building?
At this time, no.
So during the inspection as well, right?
Right.
And was there any year that the property was vacant or not being occupied?
Yes.
No occupants.
Between 2018 and 2021, there was probably and this is just a production line that was off because of, again, one of these market changes. That production line came off. By now, it's already been replaced. But and just so you know, I mean, what we've accounted for is in the costing areas that are just not used in general, just like you have. But on the income side, what we've done is just apply a standard market vacancy because we've only used market parameters for it. So we're not adding any additional vacancy on our income approach.
I have no other questions, Mr. Chair. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you for that. Does Mr. Valderrama, you wish a summary on this?
No summation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Marcello?
No additional summary. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's take a short 5-minute break before we get back to the final two properties, which on our docket today. Thank you. Okay, we reconvene with 160 Princess. Again, the issue is class and liability. So, Mr. Reimer, you can proceed.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this application relates to Red River's property at 160 Princess Street. Roll number is 13-096-031-000. And for the same reasons discussed earlier this morning, we're asking for confirmation of the liability to taxation and classification at this time, pending the outcome of the Court of King's Bench application in court. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Valderrama, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions from the panel on this?
I have no question.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Valderrama, your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property has a file number of 22-1316. As mentioned by the applicant, the roll number is 13-096-031-000, and it is located at 160 Princess Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $32,887,000. It is classified as an institutional property with a liability of grant. It has 4 to 6 stories with 5 sections with an effective years built of 1991 to 2004. Its construction class is masonry bearing walls with an average wall height of 12 feet to 14 feet. This zone is a character with land area of 61,886 square feet, a planned area of 55,575 square feet, and a gross floor area of 219,547 square feet. That's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions, Mr. Reimer?
No questions.
Questions from the panel?
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Then we'll go on to our last property, 2065 Notre Dame. So again, the issue is class and liability. So, Mr. Reimer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have the address as 2055 Notre Dame. But it'll be the same property.
Oh, sorry, 2055.
It's the main campus of the college.
Soon to be 68-year-old eyes. So I need bigger print.
So yeah, the property is assessed at 2055 Notre Dame. Roll number is 07569136560, and we're asking for confirmation of classification and liability pending the receipt of the Court of King's Bench application filed previously. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Valderrama, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and questions from the panel?
None. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Valderrama, your presentation then.
Yeah, the last property has a file number of 22-1315. As mentioned, the roll number is 07569136560, and the property is located at 2055 Notre Dame Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property has split assessment. The first one has an assessed value of $66,092,000. It is classified as an institutional property with a liability of grant. And the second assessment has an assessed value of $67,000. It is classified as an institutional property with a liability of exempt. The property has 1 to 8 stories with 14 sections. It has an effective years built of 1963 to 2018. It has a construction class of masonry bearing walls with average wall height of about 10 feet to 22 feet. This zone is an EI or educational institution with a land area of 4,200,000 299,003 square feet. There's a planned area of 520,960 square feet and a gross floor area of 1,147,325 square feet. And that's the presentation for this property, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Reimer?
No questions.
Okay, any questions from the panel?
I do have one question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
It's a split assessment. Can you tell us what the exempt portion is versus the grantable portion?
I can help with that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Reimer.
Mr. Chairman, that's going to be a daycare, a nonprofit daycare site.
I was about, yeah.
I thank you.
The
No
exempt-
further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right. Gail, did you have questions?
That had been my question as well. So my understanding is the exempt property is a daycare?
It is a nonprofit daycare.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can turn to page 33 of my brief, yes, it is there. There's a small section that it is a daycare.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank
all
you.
All right. Thank you then. We have heard all the items scheduled, and then this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.